When it comes to most anime, there are always legendary swords or sacred artifacts which usually come in a group. My first memory seeing this was in Naruto, where there were 7 swordsmen of the mist, each having a unique blade. Even One Piece has their own version of it, such as Mihawk possessing one of the 12 great swords. ReZero does something similar by having 10 swords of power. These swords are of course stronger than all of the rest of them, and this video will go through everything we know about the 10 swords of power. On screen we can see the 10 swords of power, and these are the titles: the Beloved Sword, the Blight Sword, the Cursed Sword, the Dragon Sword, the Dream Sword, the Fiend Sword, the Spirit Sword, the Life Sword, the Shadow Sword, and of course the Yang Sword. Luckily for us though, 5 of the 10 swords have not made an appearance in ReZero, whether it be the main storyline or any side or if content. So luckily we can skip over 5 of the swords. Now let's move to one of the swords which I think is the most prominent, and that is of course the Yang Sword, also known as the Yang Sword Wallachia. So what you'll see is that many of these swords have a title, but they actually have a separate name. So the Yang Sword is known as the Yang Sword Wallachia. And this is mainly used by Wallachian royalty, such as Priscilla, Lamia, Vincent, and essentially one of the biggest things that the Yang Sword allows you to do, and the most unique feature of it, is that it chooses its wielder. And essentially what that means is, if you're not worthy and you touch the sword, you will burn to death. And we see this happen in Crimson Afterglow. However, people who are worthy, such as Priscilla, Vincent, Lamia, they can use the sword and summon it at will, and they can just sort of materialize the sword. Not only that, we know that multiple versions of them can exist at the same time. We see this again in Crimson Afterglow when Priscilla is fighting Lamia, and they're fighting and they both pull out the Yang Sword. So that's really interesting. It uses quite a lot of mana, and not only that, it allows you to selectively burn targets. So for example, Priscilla could set you on fire, but if she didn't want you to feel pain or to burn to death, you wouldn't actually feel the flames. Like, you'll be on fire, but you would be unaffected. So I feel like there's something like that in Shield Hero as well. There's a character that can actually do that. They have like an ability where their magic doesn't affect her allies. So it's similar to that if you've watched Shield Hero. Not only that, it varies in strength depending on the time of day. This is a bit iffy because we've seen this in Arc 7 where Priscilla talks about how it's becoming nighttime when she's fighting Madeline, and that the luster of the sword is going down, which does affect its power. Not only that, of course, as stated before, it's one of the qualifications needed to become the Emperor of Wallachia. So you need to be able to wield the Yang Sword to essentially become the Wallachian Emperor, and that's pretty much all we really know about the Yang Sword. The Life Sword, also known as the Life Sword Zeme, has appeared in the Aganu If route in Lost in Memories. Remember, Lost in Memories is overseen by Tappe, so a lot of the lore is canon. And essentially the way this sword works is you put mana into it and then you stab someone and it will destroy their soul, and Subaru wanted to use it on Betelgeuse to kill him. We next have the Dragon Sword, also known as the Dragon Sword Reed. And of course, this is with Reinhard van Astria. As we know, this is pretty much the strongest sword. It was made by an unnamed legendary blacksmith and said to be blessed by the sword god, which Reinhard seemingly can sort of speak to. Even Teresia could hear the sword god's laughter. Not only that, we know that it's only used by the Sword Saint and it's essentially passed down from generation to generation. And finally, kind of like the Yang Sword, where the Yang Sword will choose its wielder, the Dragon Sword will choose its opponent. And over the course of the series, it's only been used against several people. And that's pretty much all we really know about the Dragon Sword The final two swords which are known to us are the Fiend Sword and the Dream Sword. Both swords require the user to essentially kill people with them, and that they emit a sort of bloodlust. It's said that the Fiend Sword, also known as Murasame, will essentially kill invisible things by touching it, although that was something stated in Wrath If. Hopefully that's expanded in Arc 7. The Dream Sword apparently is said to wither away at the owner's soul, so I'm not sure if that means that Cecilis will be affected by using the Dream Sword, but essentially Cecilis needs to kill people with these swords to sate the hunger of these swords. I feel like if you watch One Piece, I feel like Zoro has a sword like this as well, that has like a bloodlust, but yeah, it's similar to that if you've watched One Piece. That's pretty much it on the Swords of Power. I'm pretty sure a lot of it will be sort of looked at in future arcs, but look forward to our updated video in a few years, I guess.